everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. I'm here today with another fairy journal flip through from the fairy collection. This is the Orange Mountain Ash fairy journal. So this journal is two signatures that I've done with these mini bindings in a hand-painted vintage book, and this one has obviously an orange theme. So you'll see here on the spine it says believed in fairies, and I've used some field guide to just kind of make the spine a little more interesting. On back we have all the fairies in the land and a little bit of decoupage. Those sparkles that you see, we have iridescent paint, and these sparkles are the fairy dust that I have decoupaged onto the book. The cover is a cabinet card style cover. I've added 4 bronze brads to the corners, and this beautiful botanical card on the front with this little Cicely Mary Barker fairy here. This is the Mountain Ash fairy, and you'll see an eyelet here on the spine, and I have not held back with providing beautiful beads for the spine dangle. You'll see vintage buttons, and these are some polymer beads and old typewriter keys and glass beads. Yeah, lots of fun beads and buttons and bits on there. And the closure is with some vintage seam binding, and there is an eyelet on the back here that ties through. And I decided to use a green seam binding. So let's open up the journal. You'll see on the side here there are some orange flowers and fabrics that stick out, and we have some beaded head pins. These are all hand beaded by me, and they are on bulb pins, and they are beaded head pins. Okay, so let's jump into this journal. So when you open up this journal, it's like the rest of the journals in the series. I've sort of told a little story, if I could. I had this idea about how, like, Cicely Mary Barker has had a lot of books made about her and, you know, her love for fairies, and it's kind of like a nature note type book where, you know, she was on an adventure looking for fairies. So the spine is covered in some Amity Bloom paper that's really beautiful, and this one, so we have a pocket here. So this is some incredible scrapbook paper that covers the back here. And this pocket, it says fairies live for a very, hold on, this is actually a double pocket, a very, very long time. And then we have the absent-minded fairy that tucks in here. And then back here we have this warbler field guide page, and this little fairy that just kind of pops in there as well. And then one thing that kind of brings continuity to this collection is back to telling the story. This is an actual 1950s photo, and I've edited it by adding some little fairy wings to this lovely little grandma fairy. So I think that's a nice way to kind of tell a little fairy story. So the first page of this book is this beautiful handmade, locally made paper, and I've added at the bottom here, just with a rusty paper clip, a nasturtium fairy postcard. And that just pops on here. And then we have orange flowers that are stitched to the edge of this page. And over here we have a couple things going on. So this is a fun flip up, and I'll just pull the book down so you can see we have a bird there. And so that flips up, and underneath it we have this little pocket tuck spot made from the same kind of thing, the little bit of leafiness there. And this little journal card of these fun little mushrooms with these faces and a fairy, and it just pops right in the little tuck spot. So let's just lay this back down at center again. And then this is a page from Teal and Tattered's Fairy Kit. And then we have a little kind of collage down here. It says, hand in hand with fairy grace, we will sing and bless this place. And that is from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. And we have a little fabric tab with one of those head pins. This is a page from a beautiful fairy book. This little girl leaving this cottage. And on this side we have a little Cicely Mary Barker fairy pocket and more of that beautiful fairy book. And inside the pocket, this is packaging paper on the back of this sort of stationery. Where do fairies come from? You really want to know. And are they very tiny, or do they sometimes grow? There are many kinds of fairies, and most you'll never see. They hide in secret places like a plant or nest or tree. This is the Stork's Bill Fairy. The Song of the Ribwort Plantain Fairy. This is a little sort of pocket tuck spot made from these sweet owls, and this is some of my hand spun yarn that's been stitched along the border, and it's on this magical fairy paper that's locally made. It's a really sparkly iridescent paper. And then this is a little Eric Kincaid art fairy tag. And on this side we have a beautiful fabric flip with some yellow fabric and the Song of the Jasmine Fairy. This is a Cicely Mary Barker inspired fabric. And then we have some more Cicely Mary Barker fairies here, and the Song of Laburnum Fairy. This is a little Hope fairy tarot card, and it's on one of my skyline border pages with some beautiful apples up here. And inside we have this large piece of stationery of these beautiful fairies. And then we have a fairy down here and more of that skyline botanical up there. And this is a little fungi related journal card. And then this is just a botanical page with some beautiful vintage tatting down the side. And on this side we have a rainbow fairy and these clouds that are crying. How cute are they? And then this is a little die cut of a gold mushroom on some hand dyed paper, and I just added more gold on the back to get the back impression of the mushroom. And then we have this belly band from this yellow eyelet lace that I've dyed, and this is from a fairy book page. It's kind of a little bit collaged, and this has a fairy rhyme. Deep in the woods recesses cool, I see the fairy dancers glide, in cloth of gold and gown of green, my lord and lady side by side. But who has hung from leaf to leaf, from flower to flower, a silken twine? That's Dora Sitterson Shorter from The Watcher in the Wood. And it has this piece of stationery of these fairies inside. So lots of extra writing space. And then we have some fairies here against this moon, and they're sort of, I think they're following this little elf-like character who's also like very fairy-ish. This is some of my eco-printed paper. And then this is a little bit of like a journal entry from a Cicely Mary Barker book, and it just flips up, and we have a little collage here of botanical paper. And at center we have this little fairy sneaking in the wood. It says the fairies came flying at the window. And on this side we have more of the same kind of paper, and this little tuck down here of these little fairies. I post a letter in the flowers, I wish you many happy hours. And this is a Cicely Mary Barker postcard of the Willow Fairy. And then more of my eco-printed fabric, or eco-dyed. More fairies. And then I've used as a pocket an Amity Bloom index card with a tab, and we have more fairies down here. And this is the Strawberry Fairy from Cicely Mary Barker. That just tucks up in here. And then just some tea-dyed paper with a little mushroom. And then this has a little botanical page pocket down here, and this is the Rainbow Fairies poem, and all the rainbow fairies are there. And then we have a journal card in here. When the first baby laughed for the first time, the laugh broke into 1,000 pieces, and they all went skipping about, and that was the beginning of fairies. And that is by J.M. Barrie. There is some fabric stitched to the side of this page with a little beaded head pin. And then this is just some yellow botanical paper. And this is a large journal card of a bunch of fairies on a huge mushroom. And that just clips up there on a rusty paper clip. And then we have more fun rainbow fairies on this orange page to go with the journal. And inside is this tag of a fairy with a little bunny here. And then we have a side tuck spot with some botanicals and vintage wallpaper and these beautiful fairies on this journal card. And then a Cicely Mary Barker fairy and another. and just some spraying with Distress oxide. And then we have a little pocket here that's made from a fairy coloring book, and then this is just some stationery, and it's the story of the Silver Fairy. This is the Chicory Fairy. Jack Go to Bed at Noon. This is this little girl here in a fairy ring of mushrooms. And then on this side we have some fairies and a little collage and a little botanical pocket. We have little fairies up here, and then this little tag. Avocado dyed paper, and this says the Wishing Fairy, and it's just a little cluster collage and some stenciling. And just a beautiful page. This is from Teal and Tattered. And then we have a little Cicely Mary Barker inspired fabric here on this handmade paper. And it's just like a little fabric flip. So you can write some secrets under there. We have some more flowers stitched to the side here. And then we move on to the second signature, where we have more of this really fun fairy paper. And I've added this pocket at the bottom, and we have some fabric stitched to the side with a beaded head pin. And this is just some fairy art from a book. It's just a really beautiful, sort of surreal feeling painting. More spraying and some pink construction paper with some weaving on the side there as a tab. This is a vintage book page from an Enid Blyton book called A Cozy Night, or A New Suit for the Party. This is a book actually about fairies. And then we have this bright orange page. And over it we have this large piece of stationery of the Rainbow Fairies by Eric Kincaid. So that just kind of tones that back down again, because that is a bright orange. But I thought if there was a journal to add this bright orange page to, it had to be the orange journal. And some eco printed paper with botanicals here. Then some fairies riding along on these butterflies, children. And then a squirrel pocket up here with more fairy book page. And then this is some fairy art here. That's a Warwick Goebel piece. And then some construction paper that's been marbled. And this is my own hand-dyed batik fabric on the side. A pansy page, because pansies are beautiful. And a botanical pocket on some nice paper with this little journal card here. Little flower child. And then just a beautiful orange paper, and this is a little applique that I stitched from a vintage bit of lace and a little silk flower. Some stenciling. The Song of the Blackberry Fairy. The Song of the Nightshade Berry Fairy. This is just some nice vintage stationery. And a little cluster with a botanical. The Bugle Fairy. Columbine. And this is avocado dyed paper. This is a painted page from a book with these little fairies along the side with little bubbles. Some blue ribbon up the side here, and a coloring book page pocket, just with some beautiful fairy art, little journal card. And this is a cabbage dyed page with a little bit of book page and iris down here. Stenciling. More stenciling and a mushroom up here. This whole page pulls out because there's just a beautiful bit of fairy art here. And when we go to the other side, we have more fairy art down here. And this is, I don't know if you can see the complexities of this, but there's a lot going on in this image. Let me just get recentered here. And avocado dyed paper with a little owl stationery up here. This is a Friendship Fairy Tarot card on this beautiful pansy vintage gift wrap paper. And then this beautiful Joyce Denny's fairy art. And it's got some of my dyed paper on back. And the center of the signature is this little fairy creature, and he is in a fairy ring of mushrooms. He's holding a light. And then this little fairy pocket here with this little bit of Release the Craft in. It's just a little spider. I felt like it was a fun little addition. And a little stamp here on avocado dyed paper. And this is an old book spine collage, and it says, "Such beautiful wings." and more of that really beautiful and very complex art going on down here. We have a little bird stamp up here, and this is blueberry dyed paper and cabbage dyed paper, and more of that scene. It's kind of like a long triptych with all these fairies. It's really neat. More stenciling. And then more stenciling on a little bit of a collaged page with a fabric tab and a beaded head pin and some fairies up here. Avocado dyed paper, this little bee stamp, the Eye Bright fairy, fuchsia, a little cluster with a bird. This is that vintage stationery. Just a little bit of glue there. And we'll just get that off really quick. There we go. You know how it is, paper art and all. The Song of the Crabapple Fairy, the Song of the Hazelnut Fairy, and this is a fairy song. And when I join the fairy band, lightly tripping hand in hand by the moonlight's quivering beam in concert with the dashing stream, then my music leads the dance. That's by Felicia Dorothea Brown Hemmons, the fairy song. And then some vintage starched crochet lace on the side here of this orange paper. And then this is just a beautiful piece of digital paper with this large journal card of Maiden's Blush from a vintage rose book. More of those pansies and some pink construction marble paper. Another beautiful fairy book page from the Shirley Barber Fairy Book. This is a fabric belly band with this stitched on fairy tag. Fairies in the back, and this big journal card here with these sweet fairy family. You know, I think we probably need to have a drinking game this week, see how many times I say fairy, and then I guess we all just stay in bed maybe. And more of my eco-dyed paper, and that orange page again, but look how great this is together. So it's this, this is a fairy book page of this beautiful bird and these fairies all standing here. And that's just a big piece of stationery that tucks right on over here. And I just love how those pages go together. Those oranges are so striking. And this is more of the Enid Blyton book, The Flying Dragon. And then a little dandelion fairy. Some spraying on the fairy paper. And then at the back here I've used more of the same of that beautiful scrapbook paper, that rose and that butterfly. And up top we have a tuck spot with another butterfly and a little field guide of the warblers. So this just tucks up under the butterfly into this little tuck spot. And we have reached the end of the Orange Mountain Ash Fairy Journal. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for this one. I am really having fun sharing the fairy collection. Hopefully you're liking it and you find it fun to flip through, because there's going to be quite a few of these videos over the next few days. If you're looking for this journal and you're seeing this video, it is either in my Etsy shop now or will be shortly. So thank you so much for taking the time. You can find all the links to my shop and other things that I do down below in the description box. Bye for now.